Hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks again for being with us today as we dive into a couple more chapters of The Shadow Rising. And some really good chapters they are.
Oh,
But
yeah.
before we do that, of course, Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's
You
a
had to think
sunny
about
day.
that.
Well, yeah. Look, I'm glad I'm sitting in a chair. My legs are tired after this week, but I get to sit for the next while, talk about some fantasy books, enjoy sunshine in the distance while avoiding the over 100-degree weather.
Texas.
It's good in the
Texas.
end. How you doing, Dad?
I'm doing great. It's a Saturday, and I didn't have to work today. I know you did. I had to work last Saturday, but today was a normal weekend for me, a weekend day. So I got up at 5:30 anyways, because the body said it's time to get up. Made some muffins, drank some coffee, planned for some podcasting, and here we are. So it's a good day. Got nothing to complain about. It's an even better day because we have two people with us in Discord for the live recording today. So, hey, Jordo, Emmeline, always great to have you with us. And others who want to join us, just become Patreon supporters. Every and any Patreon supporter can be with us for any of our live recordings. It's always a lot of fun.
In every direction, so you can put a link literally anywhere. We won't, but you can click
the link will always be
imitation.
down there. Okay, so in the show notes, you'll find out how to find us on Patreon. You can also find out, of course, how to connect with us in other ways. So if you like what we talk about today and you want to talk some more with us and with other cool people that hang out with us, use the link to join us on Discord or find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram too, but Twitter is where it's really hopping, and Discord is where the conversations really get going. So we'd love to see you. Zach, are you drinking anything today?
I am. In fact, I made a wattail.
You made a wattail. It's like the second time, maybe you
That's
know,
harsh.
a Wheel of Time themed cocktail.
Pretty sure I started us doing this. I just don't keep doing it.
I don't think so, but
I know I coined the idea to you, and you went, "Yeah, that's like I'm gonna do that," and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, okay. He's claiming. Is this like revisionist history? Is this how this works? I don't know.
It's just you're old and don't remember how it actually happened.
My old man memory cells. Got it. Okay. Well, regardless, what did you create today, Zach?
All right. So today, I made a drink that I'm going to affectionately call a bard all but a name.
I like it.
It has a base of gin, and then has some pomegranate liqueur, some blue curacao, creme de violet, some dashes of orange bitters in there, and it kind of ends up coming in. Just looks really dark on the camera probably, but it's this nice deep reddish purple wine color, while really just tasting like a sweet blast of freshness. It's really nice.
Okay, it sounds like it. Discord is saying they're having trouble seeing your camera.
I tried to
fix
it. What it
I don't
is
know sometimes. If I did. Yeah, you're still coming through okay here on our StreamYard recording, so hopefully the YouTube peeps will see it eventually. But as long as they can hear you, that's a big plus that we'll hope for. Oh, Jordo jumped out and came back in. He's probably trying to fix it that way.
Anyway,
my drink.
You drinking, Dad?
Yeah, I've also got a wattail. Here's what mine looks like. And it is called it's called the Imri Stand. It's appropriately colored, I believe. It's also a bit shocking in taste, a little tart, a little bit of a bite, and yet tasty. Predominance of gin, also got some Grand Marnier, and then a little grenadine and lemon juice.
So we're both going gin forward.
How about
Would you say we're going gin and toe? No, that was too much of a stretch. I tried.
Ooh,
That's my next
Ginto. I
drink, by
like
the way.
it.
Ginto.
Ginto. I can
I haven't
work
done
with
it yet,
that. I
but
totally can. All right. Just a few brief notes, and then we'll jump into our content. Our YouTube channel has been picking up some new subscribers this week. We've jumped up about 10 people, 10 subscribers just this 1 week. Now, we're still small fries in YouTube, but we value each and
absolutely.
every one of you that have chosen to subscribe, and it helps YouTube have us pop up on other people's potential things they want to watch. So even if you're an audio only listener, it actually helps us share the love and get seen if you subscribe on YouTube. You never have to watch one, but we wouldn't mind. Jordo says he subscribed twice. See, I don't care how you do it. If you find ways, that does help. So thank you and welcome if you're one of our recent subscribers. We're going to try to keep not disappointing you. And audio listeners will still always have it in the audio format. No worries.
Because we also love you. We love if you enjoy our content in any way. It's more than I could have asked for.
There you go. Yeah, you still originally thought we'd have maybe 5 people if we were lucky.
I was telling someone that today. Yeah.
Every once in a while, I have actually had something where somebody has listened to the podcast and I didn't know them personally. And I'm like, you found it? That's so cool. Okay. I want to know what we're reading right now. We've been updating people as we've been going along of late. For me, I am 50% through The Darkest Road, the final book of the Fionavar Tapestry. Now, I'll specifically highlight that was something Emmeline wanted us to read, and we're going to be doing a podcast on the Fionavar Tapestry under our To Read or Not to Read. Actually, that was Jordo wanted us to read it.
I was like, I thought so.
Yep, it's the other one we did because of Emmeline, which I'm already done with, which is the Rhuidean Revelations. So we're going to be doing episodes on both of those coming up in the coming months. So
admittedly, I've read neither yet.
Yeah,
I read slower than you right
that
now.
Happens. The other thing I'm reading, because you recommended it, but I'm still farther than you are, is The Witcher.
Oh, absolutely.
So I've moved on to book 4 now. Yeah, 4 of 6, even though it's really like 6 of 8 or something, because those 2 short story collections. It's a complicated history. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, still loving it. So I'm on the Tower of the Swallow, or I learned today it's also called the Tower of Swallows, depending which version of the book. I thought it was Tower of Swallows. It depends. I put it on our Twitter feed today. You can find published versions. One is called the Tower of Swallows, and the other the Tower of the Swallow.
I bet it's probably a translation thing where
I imagined it
moving out of like Polish was like, eh.
And I figure once I read the book, I'll know which answer is correct because it'll be in the book.
Nah, they'll have changed every part where it says it in the book or mentions it or references.
Oh, yeah. That's where it'll be crazy. If I read it and in one part of the book it says the Tower of Swallows and another part it says the Tower of the Swallow, and I'm left going, what the hey?
Turns out it was an intentional double print, not a misprint.
Ooh. How about you, Zach? Where are you in your reading right now?
I believe last time I hadn't yet finished, but I have now finished the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy. So that was fun, the 5th season. And now I am this far in Arcanum Unbounded. So I've read through things like The Emperor's Soul and
so good.
Elantris, and one of my personal favorites, Mistborn Secret History, because it
yes,
of things that I finally got to officially know.
You know that stuff about that one guy now.
Correct. I am, after reading the little excerpt of White Sand, excited to get to the actual graphic novel versions. However, I am going to wait until October, November, when the official release of the Omnibus collection, so I can just buy one volume to have all of it.
That makes
so
sense.
That is going to wait a little bit.
Sense.
That's where I'm at for now.
All right. Well, thanks for the update. And we hope all of you listening and watching, you're reading good stuff too, and maybe something we've been reading inspires something to go on your TBR. Fantastic. All right, let's move back into the Shadow Rising, son. We've got
Let's do it.
Chapters 36 and 37 to talk about today. 36 is called Misdirections, and here we're still with Rand, Egwene, Mat, Moraine, Lan, and the Aiel. They are traveling in these chapters. Okay,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where's Mr. Directions?
Ah, shut up. Misdirection, Mr. What the? This just oozes out of your brain. All right, fine. All right. So where are they traveling from? Well, as Rand wanted, they're leaving Rhuidean. And this is the very next morning after they've departed now. But they're traveling in 3 groups. Now, why? What's with the 3 groups? Well, the first group is Rand's group, primarily. So it's Rand and Mat traveling with Ruark's Tardad Aiel. Specifically the Jindo Sept, led by Hirn. Zach, do you follow all of this? The clans, the septs, how the Aiel are organized? You got all that down?
Admittedly, it's a little confusing, and it's kind of intentionally confusing. But it's not so much that you've got groups within groups, but rather you've got groups that then intermingle in groups, and some are more important than others depending on the situation.
And of course, somewhere in the midst of all of this, you then also have these smaller groups, like the Maidens of the Spear and the Stone Dogs, and they're different.
They're societies.
Right. So we got societies, sept, and septs, clans.
Those are our 3 main groups.
What did you say?
Society, sept, and clan. Those are our 3 main groups. And which one's most important? Depends on who you ask.
Depends on the situation. Yeah. So, okay. Rand's with this group, these guys, and they're traveling on guard against attack. And I just misspoke when I said these guys. Don't take that specifically as these men. This is my Midwestern roots. When we say you guys, and we're talking about a whole group of whatever gender. Yeah. Because there's certainly Maidens of the Spear traveling with them, who are part of the Jindo Sept of the Tardad clan. Now, why are they traveling the way they are? They are specifically traveling with maidens out there and others scouting for dangers, and they've got their spears and bucklers ready, and they shouldn't need to, because when you're traveling from Rhuidean, as well as traveling to Rhuidean, you're guarded by the Peace of Rhuidean. So why?
True.
Why are they doing this, Zach?
Well, there's this problem. His name is Couladin.
Oh,
and
wait,
at a greater level.
Wait. I've heard this before. I think you referenced it last time. Something like Couladin sucks. Is that right?
Yeah.
Couladin sucks.
Yeah, he does.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he and the Shido have already thrown spears at Rand. None of them hit him. Peace wasn't broken. But, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to conveniently forget that they're traveling from Rhuidean.
Right. Now, Couladin and his group of Shido are the second group that's traveling along here. And as you've clearly stated about the spear incident, the Shido have already demonstrated they'll spit on the Peace of Rhuidean if it seems convenient to them. So, still, they are traditional Aiel, so they know about the Peace of Rhuidean. And with the Tardad actually guarding themselves, it's an insult to the Shido.
Oh, yeah.
We're saying we don't believe you will keep this sacred.
We don't believe that you are honorable and keep your word. And that's a slap right in their face.
And yet, the way the Aiel play this whole game, they're never saying, we're doing this in case you attack Shido because we don't trust you. They're not saying that.
Nope.
They're just guarding in case
Their actions
something
just
happens.
happen to be projecting that.
Yes. Now, the Shido traveling alongside, okay, it makes sense that they're going the same direction because the lands of the Shido are actually the same way from Rhuidean as the Jindo Tardad, and in fact are beyond their lands, so they'd have to go through and past their lands to get to the Shido area. But something you said last episode about Mirrodin is relevant here. It's a big deal that they're traveling at the same time. Why?
Mm-hmm. Notably, if I remember correctly, his 10 days is not up.
No.
He supposedly
He had a day to go.
Entered Rhuidean, and the furthest they'd seen anyone actually come back was 10 days. Anything after that, they're lost. But you wait those 10 days.
Yes,
so by leaving,
always.
They are showing, in the same way that the Jindo are showing that they don't trust the Shido with their actions, they're showing that they accept and expect that Muradin's dead and they are not waiting for him.
Yeah. And perhaps Couladin is also saying, screw you, Mirrodin, I want to be in charge.
I mean, on the one hand, I don't fully disagree with you. On the other hand, that supposedly they were like cousins and closest brothers. Were they actually brothers? I don't remember.
I think they were brothers. Yeah.
It definitely seems like the kind of vibe where it's like, okay, it's really shitty if you're gonna just be like, screw you, I'm in charge. You can die. I don't think he's that far gone in this moment.
So having the Shido right there is indeed somewhat threatening. But not just because they're shady and untrustworthy. They also outnumber the Tardad like 2-1. A lot more of them. And if they decided to do something, it could go very bad for the Tardad. This could explain the third group of travelers who are equidistant between the two groups. And that's the wise ones. All the wise ones traveling independently in their own clump, right smack between the two squabbling children.
The group that, regardless of whether the piece of Rhuidean is there or not, it is a horrible, horrible loss to your honor and offense to ever even think of attacking.
That's right. Now, we're in Rand's POV here in this chapter as we get started, and we get a couple of fresh details from just the way he sees things and what he's thinking of. First, he thinks of the guy Shine again, those Aiel that are in white, the servants who aren't servants.
Oh, they're
and
not
he
servants.
Still doesn't get that. No, he just doesn't understand that Ruark has tried to explain honor and obligation, Ji'ito, and right over his head. Would you please explain again for our listeners, what's the deal with Guy Shine?
Technically speaking, you become Guy Shine when in a situation viewed as combat. Let's put it that way. If you are touched by a combatant, by just their hand, a couple of other situations like that, you will go and be made Guy Shine. Not in that they will make you Guy Shine, but rather your honor compels you to regain it by serving for a year and a day.
Yes. So no one makes you be Guy Shine. You
No.
accept being Guy Shine in order to get your honor back. And that can happen beyond battle. There can be other things that happen that are such a diminishing of your honor that someone demands, I will be Guy Shine now. I must regain my honor.
That's not super common, except in the Maidens of the Spear. They're really touchy about their honor. They would probably do it.
Another thing Rand notices is Egwene. She's wearing her hair in 2 braids, plaited with ribbon, just like brides used to plait their braids in the 2 rivers. He asks her about it, and she nearly bites his head off. Now, we know what that's about because we were part of the last chapter, but Rand wasn't there to hear what happened in the sweat tent and all the stuff before the sweat tent and the Tell Around Riyadh episode. So if you want to know about that, go check out our last episode on the Wheel of Time. But she does not want to talk about it.
No.
One more thing he's noted, Avienda is now his shadow. She was waiting outside his tent this morning, and she has not left his side all day. He figures she's got to be spying for the wise ones. And she's kind of pretty, so he figures he's probably not supposed to notice she's spying. He's just supposed to be engaged by this pretty woman hanging out with him. So he's chosen to play along.
Now, Rand is often pretty obtuse, but this is one time that, yeah, he kind of does just, that's exactly what the wise ones were doing.
Now, sort of. He doesn't have it totally figured out. He does mostly have it figured out. But the part that he doesn't totally have figured out is played up very big right away as the chapter's getting going with this conversation Avienda and Rand have. See, Rand is riding on a horse. All the Aviendas. Okay.
Yes, all the Aviendas.
All the Aiel are walking, striding quickly. But the Wetlanders, they're on horseback. So she's walking alongside his horse. And as he was looking around and thinking about things, and he had that time he's looking at Egwene with the pigtails, and he's staring at her, thinking about her, Avienda notices. And she barks at him, Elaine is the woman for you. Which we know, of course, is Avienda's self-justification for agreeing to stay close to Rand. She can remind him about Elaine, and it's a way of fulfilling her promise to Elaine to take care of him.
I mean, clearly it's a big red flag if you're staring at your ex intently across a desert. So Avienda's in the right here. Nah, snap at him. He's taken, supposedly, but not officially. And it's a little confusing.
But then she goes on to berate him of how can you even be looking at someone else when you have Elaine and her many qualities, and then in great detail starts giving the specifics of her physical attributes.
Oh, yes.
And embarrasses the heck out of Rand. She's even like, what? Why are you even embarrassed? Have you not seen her naked? Have you not bathed with her yet? Has someone not arranged that? Come on. And he's like, well, just stop.
Yeah. Aiel are a little less shy with their nudity than Two Rivers folk.
The conversation turns at a point where Avienda kind of tears into him a bit, saying, how can you not be 100% faithful and focused only on Elaine after she bared her heart to you in those 2 letters before she left here? Letters where she meant every word. And Rand is like, yeah, that's confusing as heck.
Yes, because if she meant every word in one, that's great. In the other, that's awful. And they don't work together.
Completely contradictory. Now, we learn here from what Avienda says about the letters. She's never actually read the letters. She only knows what Egwene said about the letters. And Egwene, of course, told her version of what Elaine was doing and communicating to Rand. So Avienda doesn't know. Honestly, I think if Avienda had seen the letters, she would have been like, Elaine, girl, you lost your mind. You don't send 2 letters like this.
I think, weirdly enough, I think she would have agreed with it.
No, she might have agreed with the second letter.
Because I think it's very much you make it clear what your position, what you want, all that jazz. That's the first letter. That second letter, you berate them and put them in their place so that they do not forget it.
Oh, man. If you say so. I've never entirely understood these letters. It's just for what she wanted to accomplish. I thought they made no sense. The first one, sure. The second, no. She should have had takebacks. No, not do that letter. And she's even worried about the reaction that letter caused. However, maybe she knew what she was doing because he's continued to struggle and think about her and these letters for months.
If anything, I've never understood why the letters didn't make Rand go, this is too confusing, and just shove it completely aside and stop thinking about it.
Well, to that point, the next thing Rand thinks of in his mind is Min. Because she never makes him feel like a fool. Elaine, Avienda, he can't figure these women out. Min is the one he's always just felt comfortable with. She makes sense. You don't have to work to get along with Min. More on that later, perhaps. So, Rand has stopped responding to Avienda's tirade. It's like, I can't do anything with this. So he just stops. That seems to tick her off even more. Have you ever had that experience where someone is mad at you, they're letting you have it, and you just stop responding altogether? And they do get even angrier? Or is that just me?
I would say yes, especially in your context, but usually I think it has less to do with the silence and more to do with the smug half grin on your face. Because you're quite literally looking down at them without saying anything and saying they're not worth your time. You're not wrong. But
at that moment, you need to pay attention to your body language. Perhaps shouldn't cross your arms and tilt your head.
Yeah, I think there's a very different thing between doing that and just stopping talking. And Rand here is probably not just stopping talking, even if that was his intent.
Well, she's fuming that he's not responding. He doesn't even seem to be paying attention to her anymore. So she stops talking. But she doesn't go anywhere. She's still there. And in fact, as she's walking, now she's staring at him.
Avienda, it's not nice to stare. He's Elaine's.
Oh, nice. And touchy, but we'll get to that way later. He responds after noticing that she's staring at him. Why are you looking at me like that? And her response is awesome. I'm listening to you. Don't you like it?
It's called active listening, Rand.
Active listening. All right.
You open that body language, you maintain eye contact, prolong that eye contact even.
Passive aggressive listen. Yeah, Avienda isn't exactly gracefully complying with the Wise One's instructions for her.
Then again, she hasn't done a whole lot graceful outside of battle that we know of.
She's still sulking that she can't be a maiden of the spear anymore.
She'd love to put a spear between his ribs.
Yeah. But Rand doesn't know anything about any of that. He just knows she's dressing differently now. He doesn't know she's not a maiden. He doesn't know she's under training to be a wise man. Knows nothing about any of that.
And these are not things that get talked of with him. It just wouldn't be done.
Now, at this point in the chapter, we change POVs. We're going to jump over to Matt.
Ooh,
now, through this whole interchange that we talked about, Matt's right there. He's on the horse on the other side of Avienda. She's been walking right between their horses. Not paying any attention to Matt, for which he's perfectly happy. Because he's watching her be such a beep at Rand. And he's like, I would not want any of that. I don't want to deal with that. Oh my goodness. She has a cutting tongue and a temper that makes Nynaeve look like a meek, mild lady.
Look, her stare burns more than the waist's heat. So,
Matt's thoughts, moving beyond this interchange with Rand and Avienda, go to his surroundings. Now, Rand was also thinking earlier in the chapter about the surroundings. They are bleak. It's like the whole breaking of the world did its worst right here. It's dry, it's desolate, it's hot, it's just nasty.
We'll see if they keep that mindset throughout the entirety of the series. If this maintains their like worst place in all of the land. Maybe they'll find something better. Maybe they'll find something worse. But right now,
Well, maybe.
this is hell.
Yeah. And Matt's thoughts of that is, okay, I went to Rhuidean like I was told I needed to. I got in, Snake Folk said, had to do it. I did it. Now I want to get out, but there's no out right now. I'm kind of stuck
If
here.
he tries to go out, he will die of thirst before he reaches anywhere else.
Ouch, Jordo. Wow, what he dropped in Discord. He's not wrong.
Well, especially because the specific choice, I'm like, not wrong, but I would have gone a little more southwest, probably.
Maybe New Mexico.
New Mexico, Arizona.
Arizona. If you want to know what the heck we're talking about, you got to join us in the live recordings. There are some benefits to being here. Okay. Like we said. So he's thinking, okay, I did the Rhuidean thing. I came out with this new staff I've got and this silver medallion around my neck, and he doesn't finish the thought. We don't even get to know what he's thinking as the other thing yet. It's coming in this episode still. Matt would love to just leave all this behind now. None of this is what he wants to deal with or be a part of. Just knowing it's like desolate Utah is a death sentence if he leaves. He doesn't know how he'd get out. He doesn't know where he's going. He wouldn't know where water is. And any random Aiel who found him would kill him.
Yeah, he doesn't even have one of those cool suits that lets you like refilter your urine and sweat back into yourself through your nostrils.
Ding!
Might
Dune
be the
reference.
wrong series, but it's fine.
We pick up a few more things from Matt and his thoughts. The Aiel will ride a horse, he's found, if they have a reason. He knows this because looking over to where Moraine is, Mullane, Wise One, is riding on the same horse with her because they're having a conversation as they travel. Matt is a bit uncomfortable physically because sweat from the heat is dripping into his unhealed cuts, nicks, healing scratches from his experience in Rhuidean. He was never healed with the power. Now, we knew the Wise Ones couldn't heal him. But now we know from his thoughts, Moraine, she had come back from Rhuidean. When she recovered, she did come to Matt and offer to heal him. He didn't let her. Why?
No. Because he doesn't want any of that Aes Sedai power stuff. He literally got through yelling at some snaky, foxy people that he didn't want. He just wanted to be away from all this Aes Sedai mess.
I think there was more to it, though.
Probably. Admittedly, I'm halfway through the next book right now, and I don't remember this paragraph.
Well, no, it didn't say more in it. I'm inferring from the text. Okay, I'm inferring. Because she woke him up. Okay, he was already asleep.
Oh, you think he wasn't wearing clothes?
When she came to him? No. I think I don't know, maybe he was naked. I think what it was is he was ticked off. She woke him up and said, "Screw you, go away. I was finally asleep." And he was just being a little twit at that point. Which is in character with Matt, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to directly suggest it, but I have zero issue with saying, yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last thing we get a little piece of right here is in Matt's thoughts, evidence that he got hoodwinked at some point recently into actually playing Maiden's Kiss. I don't know if we'd heard that before. We might have, but it's referenced here because some of the maidens...
He got hoodwinked into it at Stone of Tyr.
Was it in Tyr already? Okay.
Yeah, it got brought up
that's
during
right.
the poker game.
Because he talked about it in the card game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reference to it here is that one of the maidens going by flashes him a particularly knowing smile, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that was the first one who got some benefits out of me during that game." I don't really want to think about that. We don't truly know what Maiden's Kiss was.
No, I want to know enough to understand the benefits. I wonder if somewhere buried in RJ's notes, there's a
Oh,
full
I'm sure it is.
description of what Maiden's Kiss is. Like a
Now, in
detailed
Charleston, South
description.
Carolina, there are all of the notes at a university there stored that you can go visit and make an appointment and have, I think it's a 4-hour block of time to look at whatever notes you want. You can't take any photos, can't take any pictures or make copies, but you can write down whatever. You can document anything or even type it on your computer. I know people who have done that, which sounds really cool. And one of the ones I'd want to know is more about the Aiel and this freaking Maiden's Kiss, because I'm sure he explained it in his notes.
Things, but I want details. I want the nitty gritty.
Yeah, exactly. It's just pure curiosity. All right. Traveling along now, the whole group moving further, the scouts report back that a group of peddlers has been sighted ahead. Matt is puzzled to see the Aiel around him looking tense, even almost angry about this. He's like, what's up? I'd heard peddlers were fine. It let you allow them in the waste, as well as gleemen and tinkers. Aren't they allowed? And he gets a grudging acknowledgement from Hiern that, yeah, peddlers and gleemen are welcome. Notably, he left tinkers out.
Yeah, he doesn't say they're
presses.
welcome.
Yeah, Matt presses for more info on that, and Rand's like, no, leave off, dude. That's a touchy subject. Of course, we know
Rand
why.
saw the past and knows all the details about why. Most of the Aiel don't, but enough of them do that everyone doesn't like the Tinkers.
Yeah, exactly. So, can you be specific for us and remind us? Because it's a couple episodes ago now that we learned specifically why they don't want to welcome the Tinkers. Tell us what was learned in Rhuidean.
The Tuatha'an and the Aiel both share their origins in exactly the same thing. They were one people. And eventually, it got to a point where the Tuatha'an said, we are going to abandon this mission that we have as Aiel and just go seeking peace and things, following our way of the leaf, looking for the song that we sang when things were good, and they left. And it was the biggest insult to the honor that the Aiel of the time had. Now, at the time, all of the Aiel was still following the way of the leaf. But that's a different issue that most Aiel still don't know about.
There you go. Nearing the peddlers, Rhuarc brings the Aiel group to a halt, and then just he and Hiern alone move forward. Rand chooses to join them. He wants to be a part of this, which means his bodyguard of 100 Aiel warriors come along. With the Shido around, remember, they're not leaving Rand unprotected. And of course, that means his shadow Avienda comes along. And with all that happening, there's no way Matt's missing this. So Matt comes along too.
Of course.
And as they're moving forward, Matt notices coming from the Shido camp is Couladin, all by himself. It's, in Matt's mind, as if he's trying to make a statement. I'm much braver than this Randall Thor. I don't need a bodyguard. I can be all by myself. There you go.
Now, in truth and all practicality, Couladin can walk right in because he knows full well the other Aiel and even this Wetlander follow a certain level of honor that they won't attack, whereas the Shido might. So he's perfectly safe, but Rand going alone might not have been. But that's not what we're supposed to focus on, right, Couladin?
No, we're not thinking about that. All right, now we learn what the issue was, though. Why the Aiel looked tense, maybe even a little angry. Rhuarc challenges the head peddler, who introduced himself as Hadnan Kadir. How have you come this far into the waste and not have an Aiel guide? Apparently, peddlers aren't allowed to travel freely. Yes, they're allowed into the waste, but an Aiel will always show up and be their guide for a very specific reason. A, they can get lost in the waste, and then they've got dead carrion feed all over the place. But more importantly, there are places in the waste they do not want wetlanders.
Yes.
One of the most important being the one they're
Rhuidean.
right on a path for right now, Rhuidean.
Like, you're a couple days at most from the most sacred place to the Aiel.
A guide would make sure they'd go nowhere near Rhuidean. Kadir claims to be on his way to trade at Cold Rock's Hold, and Ruark's like, well, you are way off track. Had we not come upon you and stopped you, you would be a dead man, your whole group, because you probably would have made it to Rhuidean and would have been killed.
I can't really tell here if Rhuark is calling Kadir out on bullshit or just assumes, like most wetlanders, you have no idea what you're doing and would have gotten yourself killed.
Yeah, that's fair. It's left open to interpretation. I think it's both. I think Rhuark believes bullshit, but you might be a stupid wetlander. So
yeah,
we're not just going to kill you.
Of like, without proof?
Yeah. And it does the no harm, he figures, to say, all right, we're going to have you travel with us. In other words, you are under guard now. We're going to keep an eye on you. We're going to take you where you said you were going, because that happens to be the same place they're headed on their way to where they're going.
How convenient.
And that way they can't end up somewhere else. I would say it is convenient, quite convenient, that they claim to be going the same place and direction that this group would be traveling. Interesting. Now, I want to toss at you here, Zach, that
yes, please do.
Part of the tension is because they are saying they made it this far without a guide because they didn't see any Aiel guides. And they'd never been this far south, so they thought maybe there weren't any guides this far south. Which, again, is wrong. There totally
that's concerning for one of two reasons. Either A, you somehow were headed straight for Rhuidean and snuck past the guides, who know this land far better than you do.
Yeah, how would they pull that off? Whoa.
That's the sus side of things. The other side of things, were it to be honest, is why aren't there any guides? Did something happen to them? Is there something bad going on in the waste that we don't know about right now?
I like that. That's a couple reasons to be concerned.
Either way is concerning.
Yeah. So, Rhuark does announce, okay, you peddlers may travel with us to Cold Rock's Hold, and Couladin then makes a stink. Hey, why not with the Shido? We're the larger group, which by custom then would mean they should travel with the Shido. They'd be better protected with the Shido. That's where more trade would happen with the Shido. Rhuark jibes right back. Couladin, did you become a clan chief while I wasn't watching? But since the peddlers claim to be headed to Cold Rock's Hold, and that is Tardad territory, Rhuark says it makes more sense for them to come with me. He doesn't point blank say that's a Tardad hold, but we're able to easily infer it from the way he talks. But he definitely takes this as a moment to put Couladin in his place again. And he shares then, the Shido may trade with the peddlers as we travel to Cold Rocks. Basically, he's giving permission to Couladin and the Shido. That just ticks Couladin off even more. Now, the peddler, right there and then, while everyone's still there, he offers to show his wares, but Rhuark says that can wait until tonight. We'll be resting at Imri's stand for the night. Which Couladin, he clearly knows where that is. He immediately turns around and heads back to the Shido because he knows where we're going now.
I don't know why they'd be resting at Imri's stand rather than Imri's sit or Imri lay down.
Yeah, there you go again. I'm just going to drink some more Imri Stand in honor of the quote.
Fair enough.
Well, Matt does have a question. He doesn't want to wait till tonight. Just one quick thing. Do you got a hat? I could really use a hat. And he's spurred to ask this question because Kadir has a really nice hat. Matt's coveting at the moment. He says, I'd give a gold mark for a hat like the one you're wearing. And then something bizarre occurs. Matt hears, done! In a loud, beautiful, melodious voice. And he turns, and the woman who's quickly approaching does not match the vision he had with that voice at all.
So this
Go ahead,
frustrates
Zach, you
me.
have a thought.
This frustrates me so much because it puts this like assumption that beautiful people and beautiful sounding people and all of this objective beauty all matches together. And I'm like, no.
But no, I get that. That's true. At the same time, it's 100% true when you only hear a voice.
Yeah,
and
no,
then later
it
you
is
see
valid.
the person. Sometimes the person does not match the voice. And sometimes they do.
Absolutely valid, like psychologically, people will do that, associating a nice, pleasant sounding voice with someone who is aesthetically pleasing to them. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And it's not just that the voice doesn't match the person. Robert Jordan goes on to give some considerable details about this person. She's short, she's significantly obese, rolls of fat, stressing her clothes, generally just unpleasant to look at is what we're being told here. And she
Smallest
walks
eyes.
up. She introduces herself as Kylie Sheogi.
Sounds like a deli.
It's specific. What?
A Sheogi?
What did you say?
It sounds like some kind of deli treat or something.
Oh, Sheogi.
Like
I'll take the Sheogi and the Reuben. Yeah, no. She's dressed all in, and again, Jordan is very specific, all in pale cream silk with a white lace shawl and ivory combs in her hair. Introducing herself as a peddler, she snatches Kadir's hat off his head and offers to close the deal with Matt for that gold coin, he said. Kadir clearly defers to her, so she must be the peddler in charge. Okay, now I have to take a moment to highlight this. When I first read this, I totally missed the nuances of Robert Jordan's description of Kylie. Not only does he describe her attire, her voice, her extremely obese appearance in considerable detail, he also says, I quote, she moved with incongruous lightness, almost like one of the maidens. That incongruous, it doesn't fit the appearance, the way she moves. Okay, totally just read right past it like it was just unnecessary notes that I'm just needing to get to the next action.
Wait,
Don't do that.
If
you're a first-time reader, you need to remember all of this. Robert Jordan was very specific on purpose. And
I
you'll know
thought she
why.
was just very spry.
No, you will know why before the end of the book.
Correct.
Emmeline drops into the Discord. Suspect everyone.
Always.
Yes, I remember her suspecting everyone as she was reading this for the first time. I do remember that. But truly, suspect everyone. Because Matt and Kylie, they close the deal. And with that, Matt Cawthon, he has a hat. He takes on an Indiana Jones aspect. He and his hat will rarely part the rest of the series. I know I'm kind of breaking our spoiler light there.
A little bit. Big spoiler there.
It just kind of becomes iconic.
See, I was expecting like Matt to die at the end of the next book and the hat go on to finish the adventure or something.
Now, I didn't say Matt makes it to the end of the series. I didn't say that, but we've got this hat and we've got Matt, and they are always together for as long as we know them. And it starts right here. And
He's the
it's
Mat in the
cool.
Hat.
It's also significant in my mind how he got the hat. It makes it
Anyway, moving
different in
past the
another way.
spoilery, at least for now. Maybe we'll revisit.
Now, Kylie, she's ready to trade with anyone else, too. Hey, who else wants to do a deal? And Kadir notes Ruark's plan. This can happen more tonight. So she's like, oh, then what are we waiting for? Hop two, let's go. And she returns to her wagon, and everyone gets going. As Kylie returns to her own white wagon, again, RJ notes the color of the wagon. Kylie apparently has a thing for white. She's all dressed in white. She rides a white wagon, yada, yada.
She understands that the Aiel waste is hot and you don't want it to be black.
Makes sense, sure. But Matt, following her with his eyes, sees that she's got a gleeman with her. There's a gleeman at her wagon, and that she shoos back up into the seat and let's go, kind of thing. And Matt says, Rand, did you see? There's a gleeman with the peddlers. And Rand, he's like, yeah, vaguely nods, but he's rather distracted. Why is he distracted? Well, it turns out he's fixated on Kadir's eyes. He comments that Kadir is a dangerous man. His eyes, they never changed all through that encounter. He is not what he seems. Matt's like, sure, Rand? Okay. Conversation didn't at all turn creepy now. What?
No. What I'm hearing is
Rand's not done.
He rolled a nat 20 on his insight check, and he's going a little too overboard here.
Yeah, as they ride off together, Rand drops these gems out of those insights. These are all quotes direct. Time is the risk. Time sets snares. I have to avoid theirs while setting mine. And we ride with evil now, Matt. Watch yourself. Oh, that's great. But what cause have I to worry with Moraine and the wise ones watching out for me? Oh, and we mustn't forget Lanfear. Has any man ever been under so many watchful eyes? And finally, why don't you read the last quote?
Wish that I have your luck, Matt. It has begun, and there is no turning back now, however the blade falls.
Matt's like, great. Rand's losing it.
No, it's fine. He just has an imaginary guillotine, and he's figuring out if his head or someone else's is going down there.
It just reinforces, I need to get out of this stuff as soon as I can. Of course, Jordo's dropping in Discord, just time to toss the dice.
It also does end our first chapter.
It does. Which was the short chapter.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, chapter 37 is called My Drink Again, Imri's Stand.
Cheers.
And thankfully, we have skipped some travel time to arrive at their destination for the evening.
So we skipped like a couple hours.
Yeah, not as much as you think. Because Rand's kind of baffled. He's like, wait, what? You said we're stopping at that place like a mile ahead? There's still hours of daylight. Why would we stop here? And the reason is water. Avienda scornfully points out, stupid wetlander, it's always best to camp when you know water is near.
We can stop here and be okay, or we can keep going and die of thirst.
Yeah. Speaking of dying of thirst, I just downloaded on my iPad the new version of the Oregon Trail. You can play the Oregon Trail again. Oh, dang. Jordo had just dropped the Oregon Trail GIF in at the same time. That's cool. But no, this new game, yes, you can afresh die of dysentery and rattlesnake bite. I haven't played it very much, just a little bit. It's nostalgic. It's kind of fun. But the graphics are better, not much better on purpose, but a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, Avienda's all, you stupid wetlander. And Ruark's like, yeah, it's not just for the water, though. Look at those peddlers and their wagons. They can't go much further. So they'd really been strained, apparently. They need to rest. The wagons need some carrying. If they kept going, they'd end up leaving them behind. And he's like, I'm not leaving them behind. Because what would happen? What would happen if they left the peddlers behind?
Well,
It's
one of
not
a
the
couple of
dysentery
things.
and rattlesnake bite. It's not that.
Either A, dying of thirst, or
Not that one
B,
either.
there's still a Shido.
Yes. The Shido would be happy to welcome them in then. And there is no way they are giving such honor to the Shido. Nope, nope, nope. So we're stopping here. By the way, we are back in Rand's POV now for this chapter. He's aware of Avienda still studying him at this point. So he straightens up in his saddle. In spite of himself, he's like, whatever.
He has to
But he
pretend
doesn't
like he has
really
good
want to look.
posture. Ew.
It's just he doesn't want to look tired and weak in front of the spy. He swears she's just waiting for him to collapse from exhaustion. And that she'll find it funny when he does so. Some Aiel sort of humor. And he's still trying to figure out why is she so irritated and even angry all the time. Because he swears he hasn't done anything to earn that much ire. Again, he does think she learned some things in Rhuidean that might make her feel a little about he who comes with the dawn. But why does she hate being here and yet stay here so much? He doesn't get that yet. He notes he sees Moraine, Egwene, and the Wise Ones all walking together, paying close attention to something Moraine is showing all of them. And that makes him uncomfortable. His thoughts go to, great, what now? What new scheme are they planning on? Ways to control him, to handle him, manage him? And he fleetingly thinks, and this is kind of sad, Egwene is the only one of the bunch I can truly trust. But can I? He's starting to question whether he can even fully trust Egwene.
Spoiler warning.
And you're just going there, huh? Just no.
I'm just going there in the sense of we've been inside Egwene's head, we've been inside Rand's head, and they don't really trust each other. Neither of them do. They both will say that they do. Neither of them do at this point. You can see it. Neither of them trust each other. Not really.
Yeah. Now, at this point, scouts bring word of trouble up ahead at Imri's stand. And what they're saying the trouble is there's no one to be seen. The place looks deserted. And that should not be.
No.
Rand questions Avienda. So what's that mean? She just grumbles. And he doesn't give him an answer. And he's frustrated. It's like, come on. I can't get any respect, any friendly help at all out of this woman. And so he pushes her. And here's the quote. Burn, you woman. You can answer a simple question. And he does. He kind of shames her into answering. She reveals, if Imri's stand is deserted, it's likely because it was raided for its animals by a sept of another clan. And the people would have been taken off as Guy Shine.
So what I'm hearing is the Shido probably attacked at some point. Maybe not these Shido, but different Shido. No, it doesn't have to be the Shido. I just blame the Shido because they suck.
And she does not name the Shido. She names a number of other clans and septs who might have done it. He's instantly concerned that, so fighting. And he grabs Sidene. And he feels that wonderful power, but also the rancid taint flow right through him. But then he learns, patience, dude, he learns there won't be fighting. The scouts would have reported if there were raiders still here. And then Avienda takes it to the next comment, bitterly, that, and since we're stuck with you, we won't be able to chase down and recover the animals. And Rand's like, in his head, what about the people? I mean, wouldn't you rescue the people?
No, of course not. They're Rand Shine. They serve their year and a day. They are regaining their honor. You do not. They are not prisoners. You do not rescue them. That is not how that works. And after their year and a day, they will come back.
Tried to rescue them. They would refuse to leave.
No, they would fight.
Don't take me. And if you did take them, they would run away and go back to who they have to serve their year and a day. Yeah, he doesn't get it. When they finally get inside Imri's stand, here they find an even greater mystery now, because the animals are still there. Just wandering around, clearly untended. Raiders would not have left the animals. That would have been their driving purpose, to steal the goats, the sheep, whatever. And they're still there. But they also don't find any people. What they do find is blood.
Ew.
Lots of blood.
Ew.
Very ew.
Yeah, what is this? The boys?
Which I am almost current on. And lots of blood. Yes. And it looks like to Rand, to Matt, this was a Trolloc attack. But that ought to be impossible this far south in the waste. There are never Trollocs here. But that's what it seems to fit. So they scatter throughout Imri's stand. They all inspect the region. There's no Trollocs. There's no shadow spawn. There's no raiders. There does not appear to be any imminent danger. So they settle in for the evening, avoiding the spot where all the blood is. Yeah, we're not going to hang out there. From the peddler's wagons, Kadir appears, but now he has someone with him that we had not met yet. A beautiful young woman, somewhat scantily clad, named Ascendra.
Sus. Oh, Ascendra,
Yeah.
not Sus.
Ascendra. Okay. And she quite blatantly flirts with Rand. Even though she's hanging on to Kadir, she's flirting with Rand. And then she returns to her wagon. And Kadir, he apologizes for her forwardness. She just, doesn't understand sometimes. But again, Rand, mentally, his POV, he notes Kadir's eyes. There's no apology in the eyes. He's saying something, but not with the eyes. They don't even change, those eyes, when he gets on to note that he believes Rand is the one who pulled Kalendor out in Tyr, which would mean he knows Rand is the Dragon Reborn. He's a man who can channel, not even a flicker in the eyes, just casually commenting.
Now, I will say, there's something specifically unique about commenting that the eyes don't change. Because not being shocked by something or not being afraid or something, while suspicious, I don't think it's meaning that your eyes don't change. There has to be, like, if you're faking something, your eyes can still change. But there's a certain level of honesty here through the dishonesty. It's a very weird thing.
Well, once this awkward conversation ends and Kadir moves on, Avienda, I'm picturing it's verbal. She doesn't physically do it, but she basically backhands Rand for making eyes at this hussy. I enjoy the line. You belong to Elaine, Rand al'Thor. Do you stare so at every woman who comes in front of your eyes, or only those who go half naked? If I strip off my clothes, will you stare so at me? You belong to Elaine.
I mean, honestly, He's going to actively stare away if anyone around him is half naked because he thinks an ankle is scandalous.
I'm sorry. This whole quote, though, it is better than any first-time reader can realize at this point. So again, remember this for later. Everything she just said to him. But Rand touches on the part of what she said about belonging. Saying, I don't belong to anyone. And besides, Elaine, she doesn't seem to know what she wants. You referred to those two confusing, letters, and he's like, no, she's all screwed up. I got nothing here. But Avienda, she's still having none of it. So Rand just gives up, stalks away. And that works brilliantly. No, it doesn't. Avienda just keeps following. So in an attempt to get away from his frustration and recenter himself, Rand seeks out Lan. Says, dude, let's practice the swords, huh? Let's do some forms. Lan's always game to practice sword forms. this is a touchy thing for the Aiel. Why?
Yeah. Well, they don't touch swords. It's like one of the biggest crimes they can do. We know the history of it being that they, in following the way of the leaf, when they broke it, picked up spears, but promised not to pick up a sword because it has no use other than killing. But even the Aiel, most of them just know they don't. They don't because they don't, and it's terrible.
He's supposedly he who comes with the dawn, Aiel leader of some sort, and yet he still does things with swords. So he knows this irks them, offends them, but Rand's got to be Rand. He's a sword dude. He's a blade master. He's not going to give up the sword. And he does find it very relaxing to go and train. Lan's happy to help. They go get a good workout together. And as it kind of winds down, Lan is commenting, you kind of lost your focus there, dude. You're a little rusty. You got to keep your concentration. If you don't, that's the one time you're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Avienda, she sat nearby and watched the whole thing with this grumpy stare. I can just picture stupid wetlander, stupid wetlander, stupid wetlander, going on in her head. Rand then, while they're catching their breath now, sore muscles, all worked up good, he asks Lan, so the Aiel, what do you know about how they fight? Lan shares what he knows. Mm-hmm. And that it's very impressive. I mean, they're pretty hard to stop. And Rand kind of takes that to the next step. So how do you defeat the Aiel with their impressive battle techniques? And Lan has answers for that too. Now, as Lan is explaining that, Avienda is getting really irked and blurts out finally, why do you want to know how to defeat the Aiel? You're he who comes with the dawn, aren't you? To bring the Aiel together, to bind them, and now you want to know how to defeat them? And
besides,
even if you wanted to know how to defeat them,
ask the Aiel.
Say it.
Because the Aiel fight the Aiel. If you want someone who knows how to fight Aiel, you have to talk Aiel.
You don't ask a stupid wetlander. Rhuarc, however, happens upon them at this point. And he had been there early enough to hear what Lan said about how you can defeat the Aiel's strategies, as well as hear Avienda's snarky responses. And he comments that actually what Lan said, those techniques have been effective at times in battling the Aiel.
They've been ineffective at other times with less effective people running them. But, they work sometimes.
The Borderlanders have used these techniques with some success. And, of course, Lan is a Borderlander. It suggests some history there.
Used these against some of the Aiel that maybe Rhuarc was involved with. Yeah, it's possible that they were fighting on two sides.
But then Rhuarc turns to Avienda, and he gently but quite clearly admonishes her for her ongoing sulking, her rude behavior, over being made to do as the wise ones instructed. And also he's assuming, and he says it out loud here, and Rand's like, oh, a revelation here, that part of what this is about is she's still sulking and acting out because she had to give up being a maiden of the spear in order to become a wise one. Rand's like, duh, she went to Rhuidean. That's what that was about.
Yeah, he at this point, up until now, didn't realize, oh, you're the wise one thing. Like, didn't actually get that.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. But then his mind leaps to the very next thing. Oh, can she channel? Is she another one of the women around me that can channel?
Yes.
And then his mind goes back to men. He's like, since I left the two rivers, I swear every woman in my life of any significance can channel except men.
Correct.
I'm getting tired of this.
Live with it.
Rhuarc then tosses a water skin to Rand. who carefully downs half of it. Gulp, 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 gulp. He is a little thirsty, but knowing Aiel ways, he's very careful not to drip or spill. It's hard because he's so thirsty, but he doesn't spill. Oh, good. We're done working out. I've got a drink. I'm rested. And then he notices Ruark is holding two swords. Not swords.
No,
spears.
Ruark would
not
never.
Swords. Two Aiel spears and a pair of bucklers. He said, I thought you might want to also learn the spear.
Which is a very valid and really, on so many levels, this is a really wonderful thing that Ruark is doing. Both
It
in
really
a
is.
legitimate teaching him how to use it, but also just a kind of PR for the Karakarn here. If you just spent a whole bunch of time using the one thing that is atrocious to even look at for the Aiel, you got to make it look like you're also learning it this way, and you're just becoming the perfect weapon of everything or something. You got to go big.
I mean, come on. Develop some Aiel cred, okay? Come on. So let's learn the spear. Now, Rand gets that. He appreciates the offer. He is tired and sore and wants to do nothing now. But time is of the essence. I've got an opportunity. He says, yeah, let's go. And he's going to train with
stabs
the spear.
Rand through the neck. He dies. End of story. No. But it'd be funny.
No. It would not. There would have been an editor and publisher somewhere going, what have you done to us, Robert Jordan? Okay. Now we jump POV again over to Matt. So Rand, back to Matt again. Matt's hanging out by the peddler's wagons. Just people watching, trying to stay out of the way. And one of the things he was watching was Rand and this training session and stuff going on. And seeing them work so hard out in the beating sunshine as Matt sits there in the cool shade of his hat. He's just shaking his head. It's like, that is so stupid. Any smart person is not hanging out in the sunshine. Even worse, working out in the sunshine. No.
It's good for losing weight.
It's good for sunstroke. From this vantage, he also gets to observe the comings and goings of many of the Aiel as they come to trade with the peddlers. And Matt, and of course then we, learn a few things from this. First, the Aiel, they don't have much for coin. That's not something they deal with. They're instead more a culture that barters.
Yes.
So they're bringing stuff they can trade with the peddlers to get the things they want. And the peddlers seem to be all good with that.
I mean, they might be upcharging, but only so much because
the Aiel are shrewd. Yeah, they're not suckers. They know the value of stuff. However,
which is wild considering stuff doesn't really have value until a purchase and transaction has been made.
And how much something is worth is in the eye of the beholder. So he's finding the things that they value, the Aiel value, is different than what he's used to. For example, the first thing that goes anytime a peddler has it is what? What's the first thing they want to grab?
Sorry, something.
He lost the notes. Books. They covet books.
See, I was looking in your notes to be like, it feels like you're setting me up for this is a thing that is the singular first thing. And I saw a whole list and went, none of these say it's the first thing to go.
It's the first thing I listed. Okay, books. But also lace, velvet, ribbons, those sorts of things. They definitely want them. However, something else that Matt's familiar with being very valuable, silk, is completely ignored by the Aiel. Now he overhears one of the Aiel mentioning, oh yeah, we have far cheaper silk out into the east. So somewhere out east, there's a source of silk that's cheaper than this.
It's not so much that they can't get it or they don't want it, but rather they can get it for cheaper and for easier. And I believe we do at this point know one of the things that made Rhuidean wealthy when they were allowed to travel through the waste was that they were obtaining silk and a couple of other things from some land out that direction. So it's
Mm-hmm.
foreseeable that the Aiel still have that connection.
Right. He sees that needles and pins go quickly, but pots and knives passed over disdainfully. We don't need that.
They make better stuff.
One other thing he really catches his attention: wine and brandy, very highly valued. But also he hears Hiren actually inquire about Two Rivers Tabak, which unfortunately the peddlers didn't have. He's like, what? They've heard of Two Rivers Tabak?
Yeah. They've never heard of the Two Rivers, but they've heard of Two Rivers Tabak. Truthfully,
Also,
anything that requires like good growing lands and more temperate climates to
like
make
the wine, the brandy,
exactly is going to be something that they need.
I think this is an interesting and humorous parallel, though, that Two Rivers Tabak is known everywhere, just like Shire Leaf was known.
Oh, absolutely.
All over. Yeah.
Long bottom leaf.
It's kind of an homage to Tolkien here, that the Two Rivers Tabak is everywhere. Yeah. Also, as Matt sits there mulling over his thoughts, we get confirmation finally of that something else that happened to him in Rhuidean. The thing he didn't want to think about earlier in the last chapter.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember that he had asked the foxes about getting the holes in his memory filled. Well, they were. Unfortunately, just not with his own missing thoughts.
No, they were
what
filled
sorts
with
of things?
Other experiences, memories and skills, and definitely a working knowledge of a language and a whole bunch of things from a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah, he's got all these other people's memories and they feel like they're his own now. And there's a heavy preponderance of those memories that are connected to battles. So much so his mind is full of so many things that happened in warfare and battles that it's impacting the way he looks at the world around him. He can't help finding himself thinking of, hey, this would be a great area to set up an ambush. Or I know just how we could create a defensible structure with this setting. I mean, he doesn't want to think about these things, but that's what pops into his head now. Speaking of popping into his head, before any of this, he had demonstrated this weird tendency for the old tongue to come popping out of his mouth unsolicited.
Moraine said it was the old blood singing.
Right. Well, since his memory was filled, he fully knows old tongue now. It's not just it pops in. He can read it. He can say it. It's all there.
It still might happen without his control, but he doesn't know it.
Which it does right here, because lost in his own thoughts, he literally says out loud, okay, Zach, I want you to try to pronounce this. What does he say in the old tongue?
I would be down for this, but I look at what you wrote.
Yeah, it auto-corrected on me.
Corrected, and so I'm like, you want me to read the auto-corrected? I will read it, but I will tell people that I'm reading the auto-corrected version.
Okay, I'm looking up the actual so I can get it right. But in the meantime, please read the auto-corrected, redacted version now.
It says, Sa Suvreya 9 mission ye.
Okay, so I'm fixing our notes now. Let's see. And man, it wants to autocorrect again. I'm not letting it. Okay.
I'm just like,
so
I said the autocorrected version. You say it correctly. It'll be easier than fighting autocorrect.
All right. Sa Suvraya Niende Mesenyi.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Either way, it means I am lost in my own mind. That's what he's saying.
You know what? You and Rand both. Or at least we hope not.
At that point, though, when he says that out loud, he gets a response. He hears a scholar for this day and age. And he looks up and he sees the gleeman, that he'd noticed earlier, standing right there looking at him.
Yes,
Matt
my
quickly
drink's
tries to.
namesake.
There you go. He quickly tries to cover. It's just something I heard once upon a time. And he's thinking, man, I got to be more careful. I don't want everybody to know what's going on in my head, what I can do now. Now, the Gleeman, he introduces himself, Jason Natal, and joins
Ooh, I don't
Matt
like
in some
that.
conversation.
I don't like that at
You have a
all.
different pronunciation? How would you say?
Tail.
Natal? Natal? Natal?
It's an AEL.
Yeah.
AL would be Natal.
Natal. All right, we'll go with Natal. Until somebody listens to this episode and tells us, no, guys, it was totally Netiel or something. Okay, Natal, right? That's what you said. Natal?
Sure. Yes.
Jason Natal. And in striking up a conversation, the first thing he does is comment on the Aiel. They're not what I expected. Okay. Then Natal shares his awareness of who Rand is and Moraine Damodred. And what interesting traveling companions you have. He also notes that he knows Matt went down into Rhuidean and got that spear there. And he wants details. Tell me about the experience of being in Rhuidean, where barely anyone has been, only a handful of Aiel have even seen it. I could tell such stories. Yeah, because Matt's like, why do you want to know?
Or he's very charismatic and has gotten a bunch of Aiel to tell him a bunch of rumors, and he's figured this out. But either way, little sus.
Yeah, he seems to know so much. Yeah, Matt is thinking, I guess the Aiel kind of talked a little bit. That's not the Aiel we really know, flapping at the lips,
no,
but
especially not about Rhuidean.
Right? But the excuse he gives of wanting to know about it so he can tell stories, because that's what Gleemen do, that actually makes sense to Matt, that he'd want to know. Enough. And he even tries to sweeten the pot, and he says, I can even make you the hero of the tales I write from this. Mm-hmm. Matt's response is classic. I don't want to be any bloody hero.
No, of course not. Of course not.
However, Matt does decide there's little harm in sharing this tale. I know I shouldn't tell stuff like this to the other Aiel. They're a little touchy, a little sensitive about Rhuidean stuff, but it's a Gleeman, okay? And it might not be bad for us to have someone in the peddler's camp who's kind of like on our side, make some inroads. So he even convinces himself he's doing the greater good in spilling the beans on all this stuff to Natal.
And so he tells him literally everything except for the stuff about like the twisted stone arch doorway thing and those fox people, but leaving the things that were important to Matt out. Basically says everything. Yep. I'm sure that won't come back to bite anyone.
No. Now, Natal, it's just not good enough for just one time through. He stops him and starts him again and backs him up, and he asks very particular details about lots of things that Matt says that he saw. I mean, Matt points out the tree of life, and that's no big deal. He doesn't need to hear more about that. But some of the things, the figures, the architecture, the structures,
the little items
that he saw
here and there.
He wants to know, well, what did that look like? Tell me more about that thing. He's very particular. And this goes on and on and on. Matt's kind of reminded of how Tom, when he wants to know some information, can like pump someone dry, trying to get every last nugget. It is like that. So, I mean, that's Gleeman-like. But they're so intense into this conversation, they don't hear Kylie come up. She appears in front of them and speaks to Natal with a sharp note. Is this what you are meant to be doing? And he hops up, and Matt gets to observe a quick conversation between the two of them, which pretty much descends right into an argument as they walk away back to the wagons. Jason, he's all excited about Rhuidean and the things I'm hearing there, and Kylie's like, that's not what we're here for, and you should quit wasting your time on these sorts of things. And Matt's left feeling glad he doesn't have to regularly deal with a woman like Kylie.
He gets a vibe like
Miserable.
there's some sort of subtext here that he just doesn't want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Now, that Ascendry, if he could get her away from Kadir, that might not be so bad.
Oh yeah,
But
he'd
yeah, not
enjoy her
Kylie.
subtext.
As the sun sets and the usual desert chill starts to creep in, Matt rejoins Rand and, of course, Avienda, right there, his shadow, and a few others who are gathering around Ruark's fire for the evening. They're going to have some dinner. Some others who do end up joining them are Natael and Kylie again, as well as Kadir with a Sendry practically wrapped around him, clinging with no air in between. However, Matt notices, despite how much she is clinging to Kadir, her eyes are all on Rand, smoldering, sending promises she'd like to keep, and all that. Not that Rand notices, not that even Kadir seems to notice, but she's doing it. Once a meal has been shared, Ruark and Hiron light up their pipes and they ask Natael for a song. And he seems surprised. Oh, I mean, he's happy to comply, but he didn't even have an instrument with him. He's like, I got to go back and get my harp.
Yeah.
Which strikes Matt as odd. Why does that strike Matt as odd?
Because why would a Gleeman be surprised of being asked? The only Gleeman Matt's known in the last at least decade of his life has been Tom Marilyn. And Tom Marilyn always is ready for a performance.
Yeah, granted, anytime there's going to be a chance.
Matt's probably seen another Gleeman at this point, but let's be real, none of those matter.
True. Matt knows the gold standard. Once Natael returns, however, now some similarity to Tom is seen as he strikes a pose worthy of any Gleeman, and he begins to perform. Now, in Matt's opinion, he's actually not as good as Tom, but he's definitely talented. I wonder if that's a little bit unreliable narrator. He's like, Tom is the one he knows and enjoys, and so, of course, he's not as good as Tom. Maybe
it also may just be like maybe he's better than song Tom. Choice. Maybe he's very, very good, but it's not Matt's taste. Maybe Matt's
it could just be bias, preference.
Yeah. Matt's more into the kind of stuff that Tom chooses to play. Maybe Tom's just better at reading what his crowd wants.
The Aiel around him seem very much to appreciate what's going on. Quite a crowd starts to gather around this song, this tale that's being told. It's quite an old one. It's from back before the Trolloc Wars. Now, Matt is very familiar with it because it's talking of a grand epic battle, and Matt can freaking remember being in this battle. He can also remember it wasn't quite like the song is portraying. No. It wasn't that epic. It wasn't that awesome. And he remembers collapsing with 3 arrows through him at the battle.
He remembers one of the times he died.
No, not dying.
Well, not this one.
Right, because then he also has a small glimpse of a memory of being the same guy with the arrows in it, but now older, on a horseback, falling off the horse because of a spear through his back. That was probably his dying.
That makes me wonder, is that it's in battle and you were trying to get away, or it just positioning, or is that a betrayal stab in the back? I don't think we get the details on this.
We get one detail, in that it was a young farm boy who did it. That's the only detail we get.
And so I'm just like, that's another thing I would search RJ's notes for. Expanded information around the various memories that Matt has.
I'm sure there is a backstory for every last one of them. Yep. So there's a very brief conversation related to the song that is worth noting, because Jason notices that Rand doesn't seem to think much of the song. And Rand is like, well, it's not that. It's just there's an aspect of the song's story that I don't particularly think is smart. And that's depending on an enemy's generosity. And then he pointedly asks Kadir, what do you think of that? And Kadir he kind of ducks the question. I don't think of such things. I think of making profits. Before we can get much further into this conversation, though, there's warning cries raised, and they are attacked by Trollocs
Oh
and
no!
Myrdril. They're coming out of the dark, rushing in at the Aiel, and it's on. Now, we're still in Matt's POV.
Mm-hmm.
He has very little time to focus at this point on anything around him other than Trollocs. He does see Rand turn on his lightsaber and go at them with the fiery Sidene sword. But beyond that, it's just all in with his nifty weapon, which he is using both as a quarterstaff and a spear. And for this moment, at least, thankful for his past memories. Because he's using this weapon with skill and ability that goes beyond anything he's trained for. He just knows how to use this thing.
Proficient for no good reason.
Right. And
we've seen he knows how to use a quarterstaff.
It sees him through this battle.
Use weapons.
Yeah, it sees him through. And it is all over eventually. Honestly, Matt can't say, was this a few minutes? Was this a couple hours? It was just constant, fighting for our lives. But then the point comes where there's no shadow spawn standing. All the Trollocs and Myrdril are down. Unfortunately, so are a number of Aiel. And then Rand is at Matt's side. Rand's checking on him. Are you okay? He's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And Avienda's there as Matt looks at Rand. He swears she looks like she just had a good time. Mm-hmm. She found a sword and a buckler and seems to have had some fun.
Incorrect. She did not find
the
sword again. Just said. You
why do
did.
I keep saying sword?
Because you were trying to shame the Aiel.
The notes don't say sword. I have toe. I have toe. I am not going to make myself Guy Shane, though.
No, but I do think you have to post a video at some point of you using a staff or spear of your own, just to demonstrate that you understand the respect that it deserves. Maybe a video for the patrons.
Now, Matt looks around. Also, what else is going on here? He sees Moraine and Egwene. They're walking around with Amis and Bear, the wise ones, looking to heal anyone they can, anyone who can be saved. So they're healing some of the fallen Aiel, but they do unfortunately come to some and just shake their heads and move on. So there are some that are too far gone. Rhuarc comes up then, looking very grim. And here's what we learn from Rhuarc.
Mm-hmm.
The Trollocs that attacked, again, this should not be possible. This location is it's over 200 leagues from as far south out of the Blight as the Trollocs are ever seen.
All right, pop
There's
quiz.
no way a group like this should be here.
How many miles in a league?
I don't remember. I didn't care enough to look it up. Do you know?
My
Jordan's
brain
guessing
wants to
3.
say...
It depends on the author, he says.
That's actually a really good point, depending on the author, because I believe Robert Jordan puts various different increments of distance and weight in his books back in the glossary, and they are different than the real world comparisons.
I'm going to look it up. Hey, Siri, how many miles are in a league?
She didn't 3. Listen. But she
didn't
said Jordan was right.
Loud. Yep, Jordan was right. There you go. Be confident. He had said 3 with a question mark. Of course, he deals with kilometers. So
it's roughly a 5K.
Yeah, okay. But here's what's really concerning about Trollocs being this far south. How did they get here? Just like, how'd the peddlers get here unseen? How did Trollocs get this far unseen? There are Aiel all over the waste. It should not have been possible for Trollocs to be here. They would have been seen and stopped and fought far before this.
Mm-hmm. It's very strange.
Mystery. Also, about the attack, the majority of the attack happened right here, what they just dealt with personally. But there was a smaller group that attacked the Shido camp. Now, logic says to Rhuarc it should have been the other way around. The Shido were the larger group. That's where the larger amount of Trollocs should have attacked. But not so. It was as if they just threw a few token Shadow Spawn at the Shido to keep them busy while they attacked here in force.
Also, I am not a military person. I need to preface this by saying this. I also do not have any real-world, large-scale battle experience. I do play video games. That's the entirety
all
of
that
where
we
this
learned
is
from
coming
those.
from.
Yes.
However, when playing those, if I'm going to third-party something, I'm not going after the fight between 5 different groups. I'm going after the one that's only got like a couple stragglers there, because you can pick that off and then move into something else if you need to. You go for the weak ones, you take them out, and you leave if you have to. I disagree with you.
Were you the one always in those games that would just find a perch too and wait and pick people off as they wandered by? Isn't there a name for that?
Camping and no.
Yes. Oh, you weren't a camper. All right.
No, we make fun of people sometimes for that. I like that. So Jordo shared in the Discord that Wheel of Time, where Robert Jordan did do something different than the standard. A Wheel of Time league is 4 miles.
Now, are those Wheel of Time miles?
Which might also be different by feet. But again, a foot, I believe, is only 10 inches, not 12.
So they tossed a token at the Shido, but they also tossed a considerable amount of Shadow Spawn at the Wise One camp. Enough that it should have overwhelmed the Wise Ones, except they didn't count on Moraine Sedai being there. She was the difference. She could really go off after Shadow Spawn, and they were able to fight them off. But all of this does convince Rand of something. He reminds Rhuarc, I'm the target. I've told you this before. The Dark One wants me. The Shadow Spawn, no matter where I go, going to be coming after me. Forsaken, they're out there. Some of them are going to come attack me. That's why this happened here. I was the target.
Oh, well, aren't you self-important?
Matt sees people at this point.
I need to bring us out of context back again because I was right, and I'm so happy I remembered it because it feels really good. Wheel of Time foot is 10 inches. Thank you, Jordo.
And if you really want to know more about the weights and measures, Talk Around Riyadh has a whole episode over a year ago just on weights and measures of the Wheel of Time. It's fascinating stuff. Go look up that episode. There you go. Shameless plug for our friends at Talk Around Riyadh. Okay. Matt sees people peeking out now from the peddler's wagons. He sees a Sendri. He sees Kadir. He sees Natal. And he scorns their decision. We're all battling for our lives. They went and hid. Seriously? What difference would that have made if we were overwhelmed? Rand, though, has a different perspective. He simply comments on, well, they're still alive. That's all that really matters, isn't it? Though again, he says, cryptically, I would invite you to read what he says here.
Sorry, I'm not
Did you lose track because you were like discording or something?
Yes. Let me go over to what he says here. You're talking about what Matt says?
No, what Rand says to Matt.
Oh, the earlier one, the bolded one.
Yes.
Lovey. That is always important, Matt. Who stays alive? It's like dice. You can't win if you can't play, and you can't play if you're dead. Who can say what game the peddlers play?
As for Matt, he's had enough of all this. Rand's gobbledygook, the Trolloc battles, all of it. He's going to get some sleep. And he has a great line. He says, wake me if the Trollocs show up again. Or better, let them kill me in my blankets. I'm too tired to wake up again. And the chapter then concludes with just a half page of Rand's POV again. Again, we've bounced back and forth, back and forth. So Rand has Moraine come and check him over. and he allows it. He has no wounds. And she doesn't wipe away his exhaustion because she's got more people to heal. That's more important, of course. But she does take the opportunity to say, you know, this attack was aimed at you. And this time, Rand, he's being a stinker. He looks at her and he simply says, was it? Now, he just said to Rhuarc, it was aimed at him. But when Moiraine says it, he's like, was it? And Egwene, she overhears that, sees Moiraine leave, kind of irritated, and she's like, will you just stop it? Quit trying to upset her all the time. Rand's like, whatever. He's tired of people playing games with him, so he seems to be now happy to play some games.
Oh, absolutely.
He also sees, as Egwene storms away, then those two braids wiggling around, and he's like, those kind of look goofy, come to think of it. And sees some of the Aiel looking at her too, kind of chuckling. He's like, I think they think it's goofy too. Yeah, if only he understood. For himself, Rand is exhausted. He decides, I'm going to grab some sleep. Avienda follows to his tent and seats herself just outside. And when he comes back out the next morning, refreshed, she's still there, sitting cross-legged. And the chapter ends with another great thought, one of spoiler light significance. So I'm highlighting this one, where he says to himself in his head, spy or not, he was glad to see her. At least he knew who and what she was, and what she felt for him. Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. Okay. That's it. End of chapter. End of episode. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this. If you're a first-time reader, this is probably where you want to jump out because we're going to spoil something real quick, real short, but we're going to do it. So thanks. Our Discord people are jumping out. It'll be just you and I, Zach.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. For anyone still around, shall we?
We should.
The spoiler room.
We get it twice.
The spoiler room.
Yeah, I tried to turn it off and it failed. So
I was wondering if we'd go for a third time.
No. And the audio people, they never hear a third or a second. I always cut it out. So
So while we get ready to roll for initiative here,
yes.
I'm going to apologize both to you and to our listeners. Jordo distracted me with math. It worked. But turns out a Wheel of Time mile is 280 feet shorter than a real world mile.
Okay. You're geeking out on us now, dude.
It's the equivalent of 5,000 real world feet.
All right.
Anyway.
So I rolled already. I have a stinky roll. What do you got?
Another stinky roll.
I have a 6.
I have a 4.
Ooh, I won with a 6.
Yep, you get to go first.
Okay, I gotta just take the easy one.
There's a couple layups here.
Yeah, well, I'm taking Lanfear.
Okay,
we just met Lanfear, and it's so obvious in a reread, and I totally missed it originally. But you've got Kylie, all in white, melodious voice, floating on air. She doesn't look like she's moving nearly as much as her bulk would suggest. It's because she's not really that bulky. It's an illusion, and she's totally here. And we even get a sign that Rand knows. Not that he necessarily knows it's her, but he makes that comment to Matt about, and Lanfear. Don't forget about Lanfear watching too. He knows she's with this
Lanfear
group somewhere. And we're going to see before the end of the book, of course, that revelation. And then we're going to see in the next book where that goes off on a whole nother level. But we'll get to that. I enjoyed this reveal and totally missed it my first time through.
Oh, absolutely. And for mine, I'll start by kind of saying the other piece of that. The other Forsaken that's among them, Jason Natale, who is Asmodean.
Right.
Which at this point, you have reason to maybe be a little sus here and there, but also, while he's not a typical Gleeman, the only Gleeman that we have experience for is also not a typical Gleeman, considering it's Tom, who was a court bard, master of Days Damar.
True.
These
Yeah.
people, neither of them are Gleeman. They're both just, that's the role they're filling right now. However, the thing that I actually want to talk about, because this is just I want us to talk about, I don't think Trollocs killed all the people in Imri Stand. I know Trollocs are there. I know we see Trollocs in Murdral. I don't think they did. And the one telling thing, I don't think they would have had enough control to kill all the people and leave the animals. So I don't doubt that Dark Friends, Forsaken, these peddlers that came through that way-ish probably did it, and it absolutely is set up to be a trap that these Trollocs and Murdral come in. I don't think Trollocs were the ones that did the actual killing.
Okay, it's possible. They were witnesses that were wiped out by Lanfear. Possible. Regardless, we had Trollocs appear out of nowhere now. You know that was Lanfear. Or Natale. Or both of them. Because there's no way they got here otherwise. And you know this is how this mysterious peddler experience is happening too. How did they get here with no one seeing them? They traveled there. That's Forsaken in action.
It is notable, Jordo mentioned earlier, the Trollocs would not have been traveled there.
True.
Because they can't.
Well, how the heck did they get there?
Jordo suggested perhaps there's another portal stone nearby-ish. And we did hear mention that there are 2 portal stones known near Rhuidean, one on this side and one potentially on the other. So
Could
maybe the other was used.
That good point. All right. Yeah, but good catch. Yes, of course they weren't transported by traveling because it doesn't work that way.
Death gates.
Yes. Well, spoilers. Wow, we're
it's
just rolling.
It's the spoiler room. We can say whatever we want.
All right. Well, I think that's long enough. This has been a robust episode, so I'm going to roll our credits here now, our outro.
Oh, yeah, credits are a thing.
Yeah, thank everyone for being with us. Definitely invite you to connect with us on Discord, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have email. It's going to come up in here. You can email us. And if you want extra stuff, Patreon. Join us on Patreon. Find us at Fantasy for the Ages. What else should they know, Zach?
If you're there, you can join us on Discord in person, live. Be like Jordo, be like Evelyn. Be our supporters and our comic relief that distracts us. I clearly need more help being distracted.
Talk to you next time.